Shauna. Good morning again.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Fannin, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
Very good. Thank you. We're so happy to have you with us. It's such an honor. Thank you so much. And Shauna, we had the pleasure to talk with you a couple of hours ago. And Dr. Jeffrey Fannin, let me introduce you a little bit to our listeners today. We have so much things we can say about you, but I will say a little things, more than a little things, because people don't know everything about you, even if probably some of them read your bio on the website. Dr. Fannin, you hold a PhD in psychology and an MBA and Bachelor of Science degree in mass communication. And you are the founder of For Those Genius. Let me know if I pronunciate it correctly. And you worked for the neuroscience field, mapping and analyzing the brain for over 25 years. Yeah, you have a lot of tools and knowledge in stress and well-being. You already had so many interviews with so many people, and you had connections and work with people very famous in mindfulness, in science. And also, what I like to say, we have the honor to be with you and Shauna today, that for the last week, I guess you'll tell us a little bit more about that. You were together working on measuring the effect of the alternative therapy that Shauna used to practice into circles of healing with the people, and you did measure the impact of the practice on the people who did participate. Thank you so much, and welcome to the two of you on this summit, Healing the Family Tree.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Sophie.
It's such a grace and an honor again to have the two of you. And so this is a conversation, and I will say again that we have a chance that Nikki, who is with us today, she is translating everything from English to French for our French listeners. So thank you, Nikki, to be part of us. And I know that you have a chance to see that maybe there is also someone who is joining. Don't worry about the picture. This is a person who will take care of the Q&A in the end of our interview. So her name is Celine, and she's behind the picture, but don't worry about that. Now we have a chance to be together. And who would like to start the conversation between the two of you? I know you have plenty of things to share with us.
Let Dr. Fannin start.
Well, okay. I have a number of slides based on the research that we were doing here, and I want to share with you. So I don't know if you want to just have a little bit of a dialogue, or whether you want to jump into the slides so I can lay out the background and what we had found in doing the research with Shauna and her group.
Yeah, so Dr. Fannin, what about telling perhaps us a little bit about, so how did it come to go on the event of Shauna Cuch, and how did it come that you met, and what purpose does it serve for you? What happened over the last days that you were working together?
Yeah, it was a very interesting study, quite unusual. And over the 25 years and traveling all around the world and doing brain maps on thousands of people and measuring all kinds of very unusual things, this was one of the more unusual things to work with, because it was really a situation of working with and trying to measure something that hadn't been measured before, even though the equipment could do that. And very often when I'm involved in a project, you don't know what you're going to get until you get it. And then you have to figure out the story and put it together and make sure that what you're offering is very valid and forthright, because for me, science is a very exacting thing and always has been. So the one thing
Yeah.
that a mutual friend brought us together, and we began talking, and I read Shauna's book, and I thought, well, this is very, very interesting based on what I understand about energy and the universe and other things that I had measured. And so I thought, we should talk a little bit. And so when we did, and it kind of intrigued me to take a closer look at this and see if there wasn't something there that we could actually measure and show to people. So I have a number of slides that will help to explain what that is.
Oh, that's great. This is very important and very precious for us that you have this amazing background in neuroscience and taking, the time, the space to measure the impact of such work is very interesting and important, because people who may not know about these practices and not knowing if it's worth trying it, or is there really an effect behind, yes or no, and then so that's why it's very important. And of course, we do look forward to see what you found, and perhaps to give a little bit more. If the people did not listen yet to the interview with Shauna Cuch, so a couple of hours earlier, so your research is on systemic constellation, family constellations. So Shauna, you can explain perhaps a little bit more, if you want, about the frame that was around. So your research with Dr. Jeffrey Fannin, and then so that the people can understand why it's so precious, this conversation we can have together today, and to understand exactly what it's about. Shauna, do you want to say us a little bit, few words to explain the frame around?
Sure. So we take a group of people, and one of them will be sitting in the chair next to me. We call the seeker. And the people around the circle are called representatives. And we decide, the seeker and I decide what it is, what their intention is, what they want to shift in their life, what they would like to do to make their life more, with more ease and flow and grace. So we, and then I put the name, I put down the people that, or the things that need to go in the circle, and that includes love, shame, and fear, so that the energy is also being healed along with the people. And then they put the names by those, by the list that I give them, they put the names of different representatives beside it. They don't know those people. A lot of times they're perfect strangers. And then they go ask them to represent. They don't know what they're representing or who they are. And then they all stand up, and then I ground them and connect them to the energy of the circle, because it's like putting their electromagnetic field in the circle. And the energy in there is channeled by the representatives for that particular person in their life. So that's what we do, and then the movement begins. And so I always say, after I ground them, I say, trust the movement of your body. And so everybody begins to let their body take them wherever they need to, or speak whatever they need to speak. It has been such a pleasure and so eye-opening to work with Dr. Fannin, because he's so exact and so professional in everything he does. And I'm just a person in flow, and I just go with the flow. And so it's been really interesting and fun to work with somebody that he's taught me so much. Just working with him, I've learned so much from him. So I just want to thank you, Doctor, for this privilege of having you share this. And I just feel very honored to have him be present with us today.
Yes, thank you. This is exactly what you said. This is really an honor, and we understand no more the frame around your circle of research. So for last, was it 10 days, Shauna? Was it
Yes,
around a week, 10 days? Wow,
it
that's
was,
quite a while. Hmm.
yes, 10 days.
And did the people know about that the circle will be the chance to make experiences about energies and brain? And so, how did the people react to that? I'm a little bit curious to
Oh
understand.
yeah, they were very excited about it, and they all really connected to Dr. Fannin because he's just full of knowledge, and everybody loves listening to him. He's very professional and does not say anything that he's not sure that he can prove. He's just really professional. So whatever he talks about today, you can bet this it's happened. It's science. I love it.
This is a privilege indeed of today. So thank you, Shauna. And Dr. Jeffrey Fannin, you have the whole space to show us to, if you want to share the screen, you should be able to do so and let us know how we can do it best for you that you can show us what you will share with us.
Yeah, Sophie, do I share from my side or do you set that up so I can share?
So you may be able to share it if you want to try it. Normally, you should have the
Yeah,
option.
it says that you have to make me the host.
Okay, now it.
Okay, now I can do it. There we go.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about what it is Shauna and I have been up to for the last 10 days. And just getting back to Phoenix here, it was a very arduous time in putting this together because there were so many different measures and we wanted to look at it in so many different ways. Let me take a few minutes to kind of lay some of the groundwork so you can better appreciate where that's at. You know, basically, we are vibrational beings living in a vibrational universe. And so essentially, we are energy systems. We will expend energy and we will renew energy. And so from that, we have to understand that there are three different electromagnetic centers that are very important. One is the electromagnetic center around our chakras, and we're going to talk more about that. The second one is the electromagnetic center around our heart. And the third one is the electromagnetic center around our brain. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is that the electromagnetic center around the heart is actually 60 times greater than the electromagnetic center around the brain. So when I was growing up, we were always taught that the brain sends more signals to the heart, but that's actually not true. The heart sends more signals to the brain. So also around the heart, there are over 4,000 what we call neurites. A neurite is like a neuron in the brain. So the neurite can learn, it can understand, it can send signals. And the neurites around the heart are responsible for generating an electromagnetic field around us. It's very much like when you have a cell phone and it will generate an electromagnetic field around the phone. And inside that field is the text message, the phone call, the email, those things that we use a cell phone for. Now that field will interact with a cell tower in order to communicate. And so this field that we build around ourselves, we are going to be communicating with one person or another. We can walk into a room and begin to communicate because this field is about 3 feet in all directions. So if I go back here and talk about the field, we have this torus effect that is coming up from our chakras and going around us and then coming back down through the root chakra. All matter has this field around it in order for us to communicate. So that's how we are all connected and communicating with one another. Part of that depends on when we are communicating, what is the message that we are sending? Is it coming from our subconscious? Is it coming from outside of us? And so we have a mechanism called the thalamic gate. And so information outside of us comes down. Let me back up just 1 second. You go through the chakras and they start at the root chakra and they come up and end here at the 7th chakra, where what we call the crown chakra, and that's able to interact with the field. So energy from the field comes like an antenna down through the crown chakra, through our third eye, and then distributed throughout the body. And so we know that that's how we actually communicate, not only one with another, but one with the universe. So one of the first things that we started with is doing a brain map. Now, many people may not be familiar with a brain map, but we start by putting a cap on the head, and then it looks kind of awesome, but it's not really, it's non-invasive.
Okay.
We're not sticking the needle in our head. We're injecting the gel down onto the scalp, and this is called an EEG, electroencephalogram. And so the equipment then will translate that information and give us a bunch of squiggly lines. And we convert that into what is known as the squiggly lines, the electroencephalogram. We convert that into what we call a quantitative electroencephalogram, or a QEEG. Now, that gives us a bunch of little heads that you can see here. So we concentrated the research on looking at everybody's brain map, and we would do several different readings. We would do what's called a baseline. And so we would have people sit there with the cap on their head, and we would have them close their eyes so we could see what the brain is doing when we don't ask it to be on task or do something different. Then we will ask them to read from a book. So we'll give them a task to do, like reading. And then we will ask them to meditate. And so we can look at that not only from the brain map, but through my research, I found that coherence is a vital part of all of this, in opening up the cells in our body and to see what they are doing. So this depiction that I have here, the one all the way to the right, and so we have some red markings and some blue markings. It's not important that you know what the red and the blue, other than the red is what we call hypercoherence. In other words, it's gathering a bunch of information, or the blue is what we call hypocoherence. And so we are looking to see what is the energy and information that's going from the heart to the brain and the brain to the heart, so that we can see that communication network that's going on there. Another thing that we utilize is something that's called GDV, gas discharge visualization. And so people would put each of their fingers in here. We would measure both their emotional energy and their physical energy. This device was developed by Dr. Konstantin Kurakov in Russia. And I've had an opportunity to work several times with Dr. Kurakov and have many wonderful conversations about this device, in being able to measure, not only the emotional energy, but the physical energy. And so how do we actually do that? Well, when people put their fingers down on the camera lens, it will shoot a 10 millivolt charge, which is very, very small, to the finger, and then cause the gas discharge, allowing us to look at what we would rate it as biophotonic energy. And so you can see a bunch of demarcations here. And so there's about 30 years of research behind all of this.
Wow.
And those lines of demarcation will indicate what area of the body or organ is being affected by that particular sector.
Amazing.
And so that's one of the ways we're able to look at how it's affecting organs or systems of the body. But we were more interested in looking at both the energy and physical applications of this. So if you look on the left side over here, this is the emotional energy of a person. And over here on the right is the physical energy of that person. Now, what we can look at these breaks in the energy here, and that tells us that there's not enough energy. And so I don't want to get into a long explanation about this, but it's very interesting that we can see when we compare this up here in the corner, it will calculate the area in the blue here and help us understand what is that energy field around that person. So as we were measuring before the constellation and then after the constellation to see if there was a change in the energy field. And I'll show you some of that in just a second.
Yes, sure. That's fascinating.
Yeah, and so looking at the energy field, because we are energy beings, and we're really looking at trying to, when you're looking at ancestral clearing or getting I have a hard time finding words for it because this is so new, but being able to clear that energy or impact that energy in some way, that Shauna is doing this with the individual. Now, when it will allow us to measure the chakras. And so this shows a person that was in the group and their chakras being aligned. Then over here on the right side, each of these chakras, we can see a number that indicates how much energy is in each one of the chakras. And there is a little line here that you can see. It's what they call the normative database. There are over 5,000 people in the normative database. So we were using each person's demographics, male, female, left, right hand, age, and comparing it to the normative database to say, how does this person match up to people in the normative database? So we could see where the energy was, how much energy was there, and how they compared to those 5,000 people that were close. So a man of 42 and was left-handed or right-handed, and can compare that to them. Now, sometimes we would see the energy where it was misaligned. Here you can see someone who has a misalignment here. And so we can see that the energy, yeah, it's very crazy. You can see the line up here. This is normal. And this is the numbers way down here. And so the size of the balls, the chakras, is telling us how much energy there is. And here's another one that's, we can put the before constellation and after constellation. So when we look at these blue, we can see that's where their chakras were before the constellation, and then being able to look at the colored balls here and the size of them, the amount of energy after the constellation. And so there was quite a lot of data because we were measuring so many people, and before constellation, after constellation, and in different aspects, and then having to take that data and correlate that data, so we graphed it out. And here are the 7 chakras of a person. So the blue is before the constellation, and the orange is after the constellation. So I decided to home in on the 6th and 7th chakra. So that's the third eye and the crown chakra. So that would be the mechanism for this energy and information during constellation. And you can see that in both cases, the 6th and 7th chakra was higher after the constellation than it was before. The blue is before, and the orange is after the constellation.
And the third eye is completely right open, we may say, yeah? Wide open.
Yes, very much so. The other thing that we looked at with the constellation, looking before and after, was this is what we call activation coefficient. And what activation coefficient is, how is a person handling daily stressors? So if they're making a change in their energy, can they increase their resilience in order to handle stress more? So on the left over here, this is before constellation, and this is after constellation. So because it's so much bigger, it means that person has the ability to handle life's stressors better.
Such impactful results.
Yeah, so those are all the slides that I wanted to lay some background, and I thought maybe Shauna and I could have a discussion about different people that were getting involved with some of this stuff.
Yeah, we had some really interesting things happening, and Dr. Fannin was able to explain it for us. One of the really profound, one of our participants, he was doing his ancestral and his mother things, some serious abuse and things had happened. And so she, she was very shut down, and so we did the energy healing on, like we do, the shame and the fear and the love. And there was a person on the floor with their knees up, and so she said, "I just want to lay down and open up my heart." And so this was her representative, the representative for his mother. And so she put her arms out and she laid back and laid over the knees to where her heart was up at the top. And it looked very like she was way back. Her back was like this, and she was laying there for quite a long time. And we're just looking at it like, wow, how do you do that in the normal energy? But this was in the circle. A lot of amazing things happen in the circle. And then eventually she got back up, and we did all the processes we do, and then what I afterwards, he came to me a little bit after the constellation. It was probably that after I did another session, and then he came in and he said, my mother called and said she started experiencing something with her heart. Her heart began to hurt, and it was she was really worried that she was having a heart attack. And he said it started the same time we did the constellation. And so I told her, just stay with it, because she thought she should maybe call an ambulance or something and find out, what's going on with her heart. And so he told her just to be with it, because he explained to her he just did the constellations and all that happened. And so she she did. She just waited, breathed through it and waited. And then the next day she said she was just fine. She said, you know, she felt great. She was very excited about how she felt, and she wants to learn more about the work, and she wants to come and do the work herself.
Herself.
So Dr. Fannin is going to explain to us how that could have a connection to what we did.
Yeah, we have to go back and look at how energy is transmitted throughout the universe. And there's a scientific experiment that was done and has been replicated many, many times. It's called the double slit experiment. And the double slit experiment, when you shoot a stream of electrons toward a barrier that has two slits, and then the electrons will decide to go one way or the another. And they are dealing with the wave energy. When they go through the slit, then and it begins to form patterns on the back wall. Then it changes from dealing with the wave energy to dealing with particle matter. Now, we'll get a little bit into physics here to kind of understand how this could possibly even happen. So if we have a thought, whether it is a wanted thought or an unwanted thought, it doesn't matter. The physics is the same. And it's going to have a vibration that is particular to that thought. Now, the physics tells us that if we hold that thought for 16 to 17 seconds, that other energy that is vibrating just like that will come in, be attracted to it. Now, when these two come together, as those thoughts connect, it causes an increase in the energy. That increase in the energy, if we hold it all the way up to 68 seconds, now it has amassed enough energy in order to affect particle matter. And so this is how we create our reality. Now, when you're looking at generational elements here, we have to understand the issues of time in the universe, that as human beings, we have to have time, a past, a present, and a future in order to make sense of the world that we live in. But when we look at the universe, there is this thing called the observer effect. And so if you have a molecule in one place and you put your focus on that molecule, even though it may be millions of miles away, it will have an effect on that molecule. So here we have people, a mother and a son that are a long distance away, in being able to deal with some of this information. So when I'm going to add one more piece to this discussion, and that is a subconscious belief. Now, our behaviors are driven by our subconscious beliefs. And so what is the subconscious belief? A subconscious belief is a thought we have over and over and over again, and it gets rooted in our subconscious. So 5% of everything that we say, think, and do comes from our conscious mind. 95% of everything that we say, think, and do comes from our subconscious, and we're not aware of it. Now, the conscious mind will process about 40 bits per second, kind of like a computer. The subconscious mind will process 40 million bits per second. And so when we look at the universal laws, there is no time and space. So this energy that is coming from our subconscious mind, a thought or a behavior that we have, when we go back to the when we were being conceived, from the third trimester all the way up to age 7 or 8, we really have no filters. And so those, our brain as a child is functioning in delta or theta. In other words, so we don't have any way to filter. We're learning how our universe works, you know, from our parents, our teachers, our friends. And so we're understanding, creating this perception. And
Indeed.
so we will understand whether we are good or bad, the world is a friendly place or an unfriendly place. These are the thoughts that get locked in our brain. And it's not until later, as we grow older, that we find out or that we realize that there is a 5-year-old driving the train here. And so that
Good metaphor.
energy and information is stored within us, and it's going to get triggered. And it's the same with every human being, of why we are all connected, and we can not only communicate energetically, but when you look at other universal laws, we can communicate back. No energy of a thought is never destroyed. All thoughts that were ever thought are still out there in the universe. And so the work that
Like a
Shauna
cloud.
does, I'm sorry?
It's like a cloud of information.
Well, yeah, you could look at it that way. It's just all of the energy and information is out there. It's a matter of connecting to that vibration of the person. So if we look at generations that are past, and they have had the same process that they have gone through in understanding who they are as a person and how they grew up, and these things that drove their behavior, their thoughts, their perceptions, even though they may have passed away, that energy is still out there. And so this energy is connected. So the thoughts come together, and Shauna has an ability to link into that. I can tell you, as being able to participate as a
Representative.
thank you, as a representative, and I kept telling Shauna, but I don't know what to do. I've never done this. I don't know how to do that. What am I supposed to do? And the interesting thing about it is when you accept that mantle of being a representative, that all of a sudden you tap into that energy that is there. So I found, this isn't just acting out. You have this energy, these feelings, the emotions, the things that are going on, and things would come out of my mouth that I had no idea. I wasn't thinking about those things. I would just say those things. And so in acting as a representative of one of these ancestors or relatives of the person is really quite interesting, and helped me understand a lot more about how to break this down from a scientific standpoint, that this is real energy and it stretches across generations of time. So we understand it in our physical being as that energy that we have in our emotions, but that emotion lives out in the universe, from all of us. And so this is a way of tapping into that energy and information when you have the willingness to do so and surrender to what's happening. Now, if you don't surrender to it, then what would happen is the resistance would come into the field. And so you're not really communicating. That energy and information is not coming down through your chakras into your heart chakra and then going to your brain. There's a vagus nerve that transmits from the heart to the brain and the brain to the heart. And so this is how each of us deal with our autonomic nervous system. There are two parts to our autonomic nervous system. One is called the sympathetic nervous system, that ramps things up when we get anxious, frustrated, angry, overwhelmed. Or we have to engage the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the other side, which ramps things down. And so it's about balancing out the energy so that we can function normally. And so that last slide that I showed, how people can handle daily stressors after going through the constellation, then that improves in their ability. They are now replacing an old subconscious belief with a new subconscious belief, a new energy that's going through them.
And that the thing that they comment on is the frequency is so much higher. They go back to their old life, and they're not satisfied with that life anymore. They're in a whole different place, and they want to create something different and something greater than they've been living. So like I told her earlier, some of them are in a relationship that they knew they shouldn't be in it, and they just stuck with it out of fear. And they go back home and they're like, okay, I want something better. And some people were not in a relationship that wanted something better, and they found a connection with somebody. So it's really interesting, the frequency, that what he talks about, the energy going up, their frequency is higher, and their quality of life becomes much different, much greater.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's very, very impactful. Sorry, the image, the last image, the alignment with the chakras, the energetic centers, because it's much easier when we are all here in one place instead of being dissociated from a part of us. This image is very significant. Visually, we can understand the effect, and it seems to be easier to live that way than that way.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there, Sophie. And I'd like to explain what the point of attraction is. So when we take this range of emotions from love and joy and exuberance, things like that, and we go all the way down to anger, frustration, overwhelm, depression, things like that. The one thing we know from science is that many people will kind of stay within a particular range. Let's take an example that somebody who is a worrier, maybe everybody knows somebody that worries a lot. Well, here's the question. Does somebody that worries a lot, can they go from worrying to the higher frequencies of exuberance or love or joy? And the answer to that question is yes, they can, but they cannot sustain it, because then they will drop down, because most of their thoughts are around worry or anger or frustration. Wherever they are, most people do not move more than 4 or 5 categories in either direction of where they are focusing their thoughts. And so people begin to develop those subconscious belief patterns around that location. And so that's what comes into their life. They are attracting those things to worry about, things to be angry about, or we are vibrating at a higher, faster rate and attracting those things. And so what happens in a lot of relationships is they are not growing equal, so their vibration grows very far apart. And at some point, it gets far enough apart that you just don't like being around that person.
Mm.
And many of us have experienced that, but we don't know why.
But we don't know why. Yes, I remember this quote coming that we attract what we believe. So, and depending on what we do attract, the people also will receive, because we are emitting and receiving in all the time. So it's a great way. And I liked your metaphor about saying that it may be sometimes, the 5-year-old child who runs a bus. So sometimes we don't know who does choose in us, or who does behave in us, or which part of us. So I find it very fascinating that the great work of you, Shauna, that you accomplished, that could be measured. And isn't it incredible that we can, with very simple words, speaking as a neuroscientist and explaining to us what does happen, what is going on, that we can feel that we do have an impact, we can have an impact, we can make a change. It's measurable, and you can do so. Yeah.
Exactly. And if that's happening to us as individuals, it also happened to our ancestors as individuals. And that energy is still out there. And so this is how she's able to connect, bring it in, change the frequency of the energy, and raise it up and change that subconscious belief so that we don't have to drag that around anymore.
Yeah.
That's an excellent way to put it, because that's exactly what they described to me. Is they're in a pattern and it's like a loop and they can't get out of the loop. And no matter how much they try, like Dr. Fannin said, they can do this activation and get themselves up in a high frequency and get or a lot of times they go to a retreat and they get all this motivation and all this information, and then they go right back home into their old patterns.
Yeah.
And so they go right back in, and soon they lose that information, that excitement, and they're right back into their old patterns. And when and all the retreats that I do, I always do the energetic work first, and then afterwards I do processes. I do the physical, the role playing and learning all about things after we've cleared the energy. So now they have the space to fill it in with this integration of information that brings a high vibration and behaviors into their lives. So is that correct, Dr. Fannin?
Absolutely, you're right on.
That's a very important point, because you mentioned integration, and this is probably what can everybody benefit after a therapeutic session, is this time of integration. And so is there any, I don't know how to say, a tool or an advice or how to keep the vibration after a session as it did high, how to maintain it? For the people, they come back home, as you said. How can they maintain to stick with the change that it start to occur during healing circle?
Well, that's why I give the course after. I give a 7-week course, and the first thing I do, because the most common cause to me, from what I see, is the biggest cause of dysfunction in relationships are no boundaries. And they're collapsing boundaries. They have everybody's problems in their space, and they're in everybody else's space, and their electromagnetic field is just full of all kinds of members of the family or relationships, old relationships and things that are going on. And so when we clear this out, then I help them understand how to have a sovereign boundary. To be sovereign in their connection with source is their first priority, and that they can't bring somebody, like you can't save your wife or your husband, you can't save your children by taking their problems onto yours. What you can do is you can be in a higher vibration and be the light in their lives, be the example, and then support them in choosing something better, rather than trying to force it or trying to do it for them or take away all their pain. But to be with that. And that's and then the next thing I go into very much detail in role play is communicating, how to communicate by listening, how to open up the conversations and let somebody be with what they're feeling, but not take it on. Not, you did this to me and you did that to me. Mm-hmm. And I teach them how to speak their truth and still be able to listen to what's being said to them, and then be able to stand in their truth and be compassionate and understanding. And I help them learn how, it's called 7 layers of listening, and they learn how to find that sweetheart message, because everybody has a sweetheart message of they want to be loved, or they want you to receive their love. And so yes. I do 7 courses with information like that to help them maintain and integrate this higher vibration as a lifestyle, as a life-changing style. And so do you have anything to add to that, Dr. Fannin?
Well, I think that's very important, because we all live these mortal lives. And so we have a certain lifespan, we have experiences. And as we build these cognitions, we have some event, we're going to add some meaning to that, and then we add some emotion to that. And that's what gets bound together with a neurotransmitter that we call acetylcholine. And those are the things that fire off. So many of you have had these experiences where maybe you had heard a song and it takes you way back when, you have memories and feelings about that. Well, those are the things that will trigger based on that. And so Shauna's able to change some of that reaction, that emotion that's going on, so that that memory and feeling that you have as a result of an ancestor or some of their thoughts and feelings, that you can release that energy and replace it with energy that's going to fire off and allow you to function in a more balanced way.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and this is why I talk about, in fact, on my website, journeyintotheheart.net, I have instructions for a shadow journal. And the reason I bring up the shadow journal is the very thing that he's talking about, is getting your partner or your children or your parents doing shadow journal with you. It's training you to look at every conflict you have outside of yourself, or everything that's happened to you outside of yourself that triggers you, to take it inside, write down the triggers in your shadow journal. And I've got a very unique way of doing that. So you write them down, and it's teaching you to take responsibility for what you're creating in your life, rather than blame somebody else for how you're feeling, or always putting it on and making yourself feel powerless because people around you are not changing. Because like the picture he showed, you have soul wounds communicating to soul wounds non-verbally. The thing I thought was interesting about the Heart Math Institute, which Dr. Fannin is a practitioner of the Heart Math. I don't think he mentioned that. And that's an incredible, and I learned when I was doing equine facilitated learning with the horses, they said only 10% of our communication is verbal. The rest is this unconscious communication that we have with soul wounds. Is that right, Dr. Fannin?
Well, yes, but I'm not just a practitioner, I'm a certified trainer. So it's a little higher level, but you're absolutely right there, Shauna, and being able to, as far as our communication goes, and yet the majority of our communication we are unaware of, and it's happening energetically and emotionally.
Indeed. And Dr. Fannin, what is very incredible here, that you give a privilege to see in images what happened during the circle of Shauna, the group of people, is that you make visible the invisible effect. And that is helping a lot of people, I guess, to understand that we can have an impact on ourselves. And I already named it, but I like this quote so much. This is from Gandhi, who said, be the light you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. So this is what we call the ripple effect, right? Is that by changing something in us, it does change our energetic field, and then it has an effect when we do interact with the fields of other people. Thank you so much. And I think, Dr. Fannin, we know we have a chance to have the two of you some more time on this summit, Healing the Family Tree. One question for now is because you do also practice on individuals, some tests people can learn about their way of being with their brain, how they are in the daily life. Do you want to say a few words about that?
I'm not quite sure what your question is about how we measure the brain, or
for an individual who would come to say, okay, I'd like to know what's going on about, perhaps, I don't know, someone who'd like to work on the stress or a problem, I don't know, of memory or something. They come to see you. I know you do have some individual tests for people.
Give them your website, because you have things on there they can do.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we developed the Thought University, because more and more people were wanting to know. So I can work with people around the world in looking at their brain. So one of the first places we start is sending out a kit. And in this kit, there's a relationship between the cells of your body and how your brain works. And so they poke their finger, put a couple of drops of blood on the card, they send it into the lab and they process that. Then they take an online cognitive course. And when those two are done, it marries them together. And then we can look at, their brain speed, their focus, their memory, their concentration, how their cells are doing, if inflammation in the body or cells is getting in the way. So it gives us one measure. Another thing that we do is we will work with the HeartMath device. And so it's a device that you clip on your ear and allows to measure your heart rate variability. And so we can, you can see when you're in high coherence, medium coherence, or low coherence. And this trains your brain and your body of how to engage that parasympathetic nervous system and balance things out, even when you're in eyeball to eyeball with somebody else and you're in a difficult situation. There are these techniques that people learn so that they can use them, and they don't have the item clipped on their ear. They can do it, without the other person knowing that that's what they're doing in order to balance this out and maintain a good coherence, in that circumstance. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I know that some people will watch the replay because, for example, in America, this is still early morning, let's say. So I will pay attention that we can add on the website of healingfamilytree.com all the information on your bio. You both have your page on it, and then people can also see all your social medias, connect with you, look after your programs and one-on-one sessions if they wish, or what you do, because now, because of the situation, many things are going online and you are both available online. Thank you so much. It's so impactful. This is such an honor that we can have this conversation together today. And I look forward to continue the conversation. So Shauna, we will be with you tomorrow again, and you will represent the voice of shadow and light. And Dr. Jeffrey Fannin, who will be with you again on a Saturday afternoon French time, and you will represent again the voice of the science and what is the news into your field. And if people want to ask questions for Dr. Jeffrey Fannin, please pay attention, take the time before Saturday, send them to us, email on the chat here, and then we can pay attention to respond to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, the two of you. I wish you a beautiful day, and thank you again to be with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.